Hello everyone, and welcome to a special EDH gameplay video brought to you by Affinity for Commander. My name's Martin.
And my name is Alex.
This week we'll be playing a game of Archenemy to celebrate another milestone, reaching 500 subscribers. We really appreciate all of the wonderful feedback that we've received from you guys, and we'll do our best to keep improving and providing you with awesome content. So without further ado, let's take a look at those opening hands.
My commander, the Archenemy, is Narset Enlightened Master. I keep an opening hand of Soul Ring, Azorius Signet, Counterspell, Teferi's Protection, Polluted Delta, Scalding Tarn, and a Plains.
My commander is Meren of Clan Neltoth. My opening hand consists of Catacomb Sifter, Eternal Witness, Creekwood Liege, Tainted Wood, a Forest, and 2 Swamps.
Tom's commander is Anafenza the Foremost. He keeps an opening hand containing Ailey, Eternal Pilgrim, Alenda the Dusk Rose, Smothering Abomination, Diabolic Tutor, and 2 Swamps.
And finally we have Jack, who literally threw his deck together from a pile of random cards 5 minutes before we started recording. His opening hand includes Scavenging Ooze, Reclamation Sage, Treasure Map, Blossoming Defense, Bloodstained Mire, a Mountain, and a Swamp.
Given that I am the Archenemy, I go first. I reveal my first scheme to be Power Without Equal, and draw 3 cards as a result. I play a Wooded Foothills and immediately sacrifice it to put Plateau into play. It's all about the dollar. I then cast Soul Ring, followed by Azorius Signet, and end my turn. Not a bad start to the game really.
Narrating 3 players' turns at once is going to be difficult, but I'll try my best. Tom plays Scoured Barrens, gaining a life, I play a Swamp, and Jack plays Bloodstained Mire. He sacrifices the fetch land to put Overgrown Tomb into play tapped, losing a life, and then we pass the turn.
I reveal the next card of my scheme deck to be Make Yourself Useful, which, ironically, is not very useful in the slightest. I play a Polluted Delta and discard down to 7 before passing the turn.
In our turn, Tom plays a Swamp, I play a Tainted Wood, and Jack plays a Mountain. Tom then casts Ailey, Eternal Pilgrim, and Jack casts Treasure Map. In response to Ailey, Alex cracks his fetched land and loses a life to put an island into play, and casts Disallow, countering her. We then pass the turn to Alex.
I start my turn by revealing the next card of my scheme deck to be My Forces Are Innumerable. I then play Scalding Tarn, which I sacrifice to put a Hallowed Fountain into play untapped, losing 3 life. I then cast my commander, Narset Enlightened Master. Not bad considering it's only my turn 3. Moving to my end step, I create a 3/3 black horror token thanks to my ongoing scheme, and pass the turn.
Tom and I both play a Forest, and Jack plays a Swamp. Jack then casts Reclamation Sage, destroying Alex's Soul Ring. Tom casts his commander, Anafenza the Foremost, and I cast Nissa, Basswood Seer. I search my library for a forest and put it into my hand, and we go to our end step. I sacrifice Nissa, and Jack sacrifices Reclamation Sage in order to force Alex to abandon his scheme, and then we pass the turn.
The next scheme in my deck is Pay Tribute to Me. This forces my opponents to each sacrifice a creature, and Tom puts Anafenza back in his command zone. I play a Plains, and then move to combat. I attack Martin with Narset and my Horror, and Narset's ability triggers. I exile Swords to Plowshares, an Island, a Mountain, and Preordain. Martin takes the damage, and I go to my second main phase. I cast Preordain, scrying 2 and drawing a card. With nothing more to do, I pass the turn.
Jack starts our turn by playing Game Trail, revealing a forest from his hand. Tom plays a Swamp and I play a Forest. Tom then casts Diabolic Tutor, to which Alex responds by flashing in Aven Mind Sensor, a card which ruins any sort of deck searching. Tom picks a card from the top 4 cards of his library and puts it into his hand, and Jack casts Scavenging Ooze. Alex responds to this with Counterspell, ruining yet another player's turn. Bad Alex.
Good Alex.
Taking advantage of Alex's lack of available mana, I cast my commander, Meren of Clan Neltoth. We move to our end step, where I put Nissa back to my hand thanks to Meren's ability. I then discard Eternal Witness to reduce my hand size to 7, and we pass the turn.
I start my turn by revealing "No one will hear your cries" from the top of my scheme deck. Yet another scheme that does absolutely nothing at all. Nothing at all. Nothing at all. I play an island and go to my combat step. I attack Tom with Narset and my Horror, and Martin with Aven Mind Sensor. Narset's trigger reveals Blue Sun's Zenith, Disdainful Stroke, Supreme Verdict, and Lightning Greaves. Tom takes 6 damage and Martin takes 2, and I go to my post-combat main phase. I cast Blue Sun Zenith for 0 to shuffle it back into my library, followed by Lightning Greaves. I equip the Greaves to my Mind Sensor and then pass the turn. In my end step, Jack activates Treasure Map, putting a counter on it and scrying 1.
In our upkeep, Jack activates his map once more, scrying the card to the bottom of his library. Tom plays a Plains and Jack casts Courser of Crufix. I play a Swamp and Jack plays a Forest, gaining him 1 life. Tom then casts Pernicious Deed, which surprisingly Alex doesn't counter. I cast Catacomb Sifter, which brings a 1/1 Eldrazi Scion into play with it. I then sacrifice the Scion to add a mana to my mana pool, scrying 1 and gaining an experience counter. I cast Nissa Vastwood Seer once more, only searching the top 4 cards of my library for a forest due to Aven Mind Sensor. I fail to find one and we move to combat. I attack Alex with Meren, dealing him 3 damage. In our end step, I return Eternal Witness to my hand, and then we pass the turn.
The next card of my scheme deck is A Reckoning Approaches. I look at the top 6 cards of my library and fail to find a creature and continue with my turn. I attack Tom with all of my creatures and Narset's ability triggers. I reveal Plains, Rhystic Study, Path to Exile, and Sword of Feast and Famine, the latter of which causes everyone to whimper. Tom takes 8 damage and I proceed to my second main phase. I cast Rhystic Study, Sword of Feast and Famine, and the Path to Exile, targeting Meren. Martin searches the top 4 cards of his library for a basic land and puts a forest into play tapped. I equip my sword to Narset and pass the turn.
I play a Swamp, and Jack plays a Forest from the top of his library, gaining a life. Nissa transforms into Nissa Sage Animist, and Jack activates his treasure map, transforming it into Treasure Cove. He gets 3 treasure tokens, and I activate Nissa's +1 ability. I reveal Scavenging Ooze on top of my library and put it into my hand. We then go to combat and attack Alex with Catacomb Sifter and Courser of Crufix, dealing him 4 damage. In our second main phase, Tom sacrifices Pernicious Deed, destroying all creatures, artifacts and enchantments with converted mana cost 3 or less. In response, Jack sacrifices his treasure tokens to float 3 mana, and in response to Jack's response, Alex taps out, casting Teferi's Protection. All of Alex's permanents phase out, which is a nightmare to represent given that there is no way to show phased out cards in the game. Alex settles for putting his cards in a pile further down the table, and the board is then wiped. Well, that was less than successful. I take advantage of Alex only having 2 mana floating and cast Hornet Queen, which Alex doesn't counter. I make 4 1/1 flying Death Touch insects and Jack plays Crypt Champion. Tom brings back Ailey, Eternal Pilgrim, Jack brings back Scavenging Ooze, and I bring back Catacomb Sifter, making a Scion. Unfortunately for Alex, he doesn't have any creatures in his graveyard to bring back. What a pity. Satisfied of our recovery, we pass the turn.
All of my permanents phase in before my untap step, and I reveal my next scheme to be There Is No Refuge. I deal 3 damage to Scavenging Ooze, and put a 3/3 black horror into play. I move to combat and attack Tom with everything that is able to do so. Narset triggers and reveals Ghost Quarter, a Plains, Trick Bind, and Wear and Tear. Tom blocks the horror token with Ailey, destroying them both, and takes 7 damage. He discards a card due to my Sword of Feast and Famine, and I move to my post-combat main phase. I cast Phantasmal Image, having it enter as a copy of Martin's Hornet Queen. I put 4 1/1 flying Death Touch insects into play, and end my turn.
I start things off by playing Westvale Abbey. Tom then plays a Swamp, and Jack plays Reliquary Tower. I activate Nissa's +1 ability, revealing a Swamp and putting it into play. I sacrificed my 4 insect tokens as well as my Catacomb Sifter to Westvale Abbey, scrying one 4 times due to the Sifter's ability. The Abbey then transforms into Ormondol Profane Prince. Next I cast Sever the Bloodline, naming Insect token. Alex has no responses and his Buzzy Boys are exiled. Tom then casts Smothering Abomination, paying 1 extra for Rhystic Study. And Jack then casts his commander, Darigaaz Reincarnated. Jack doesn't pay the Rhystic Study tax, and Alex draws a card. We move to combat and attack Alex with everything that is able to. Alex blocks Crypt Champion with his Horror token, and Darigaaz with his Hornet Queen Impersonator. Jack then casts Blossoming Defense, targeting his zombie. Alex draws from Rhystic Study and counters Jack's spell with Dispel. Alex then takes 16 damage and I gain 9 life thanks to my Demon's Lifelink. Jack chooses not to put his dragon in the command zone and instead exiles it with 3 egg counters on it. With nothing to do in our second main phase, we end our turn.
I begin my turn by revealing a scheme card, My Laughter Echoes, which I put to one side for later. I cast Imprison in the Moon, making Martin's Demon a land once more. I then cast Authority of the Consoles, much to the despair of everyone else at the table. I move to combat and attack Nissa with Narset, and Martin with my Bird Wizard. Narset triggers revealing Glacial Fortress, Ancestral Visions, Splinter Twin and Cyclonic Rift. Nissa's loyalty hits 0 and Martin takes 2 damage. In my second main phase I cast Ancestral Visions to draw 3 cards, getting around its Suspend Rulings with Narset's ability. Next I cast Cyclonic Rift, returning Smothering Abomination to Tom's hand. Finally I cast Splinter Twin targeting Narset, because why not? I play Prairie Stream for my land for turn and pass.
In our upkeep, Jack removes an egg counter from his commander. I then cast Acidic Slime, paying 1 extra for Rhystic Study. Alex gains a life and I use the Slime's Enter the Battlefield trigger to destroy his Sword of Feast and Famine. Jack casts Farika, God of Affliction, paying 1 extra, and Tom casts Nantuga Husk, not paying the Rhystic Study tax. He then casts Grim Horror Specs, gaining Alex another life and allowing him to draw another card. I then cast Scavenging Ooze, paying 1 extra and gaining Alex a life. Next Jack casts Satyr Wayfinder, not paying 1 and gaining Alex yet another life. Authority of the Consoles is really doing work right now. He puts Hissing Quagmire into his hand and then plays it. We then pass the turn and Alex responds by casting Dig Through Time. Such a good card.
In my turn I reveal the next scheme card, No Evil. I abandon my Laughter Echoes to copy this scheme, preventing them from doing multiple things in their next turn. How delightfully evil. I prevent Tom from casting creature or non-creature spells, Martin from casting creature spells or attacking me, and Jack from casting non-creature spells or attacking me. I play an island and attack Tom with my creatures. Narset triggers revealing Serum Visions, Arid Mesa, Wash Out and Summary Dismissal. Tom takes the damage and I go to my second main phase. I cast Serum Visions and then cast Wash Out, choosing black. Tom returns his creatures to his hand and Jack does the same with Farika. I go to my end step and discard down to 7.
In our very restricted turn, Jack removes another egg counter from his commander and recasts Farika, paying the Rhystic Study tax. Given that only Tom can attack and he currently has no creatures, we end our turn. Alex responds to this by flashing in Torrential Gearhulk, targeting Dig Through Time in his graveyard. I respond by exiling Dig Through Time with my Scavenging Ooze. No more digging please. Alex then proceeds to his turn.
My scheme for the turn is revealed to be Delight in the Hunt, which creates me a 3/3 black horror token. I move to combat, swinging at Tom with Narset, my Aven Mind Sensor, and my Gearhulk. Narset triggers revealing Swan Song, Pull from Tomorrow, Blood Moon, and a Mountain. Tom takes 10 damage and I go to my second main phase. I consider casting Blood Moon, but decide it would hinder me more than my opponents. I play Temple of the False God for my land for turn, cast Jace, Varin's Prodigy, and pass the turn. In my end step, Jack uses Farika's ability to exile a creature from his graveyard, making a 1/1 Death Touch Snake and gaining me a life.
In our upkeep, Jack removes the final egg counter from Darigaaz, returning him to the battlefield. He enters tapped and Alex gains a life. Jack then casts Kalitas, Traitor of Get, and doesn't pay the 1 for Rhystic Study, so Alex gains a life and draws a card. Jack then casts Angar's Fury, targeting Jace. Alex draws a card from Rhystic Study, Jace dies and Alex takes 3 damage. Jack then puts a 2/2 zombie token into play thanks to Kalitas, which enters tapped and gains Alex another life. Jack searches the top 4 cards of his library for Angarth Minotaur Pirate, and amazingly, fails to find him. Who would have thought it? I cast Noxious Gearhulk, which enters tapped and gains Alex a life. I target Torrential Gearhulk with its Enter the Battlefield ability, but Alex responds by casting Valorous Stance, making his creature indestructible. Darn it! I then cast a Satyr Wayfinder of my own, which is obviously superior to Jack's as it was altered by Alex. I don't mill any land from his trigger, and we go to combat. Jack attacks with his Snake, Wayfinder and Farika, who is now a creature, and I send my Hornet Queen to join them. Alex declares no blocks and takes 9 damage. In our post-combat main phase, Tom casts Twilight's Call, which Alex swiftly counters with Negate. With nothing else to do, we pass the turn to Alex.
I start my turn by revealing Bow to my command as my next scheme, and choose Jack as my target. I play Command Tower and move to combat. I attack Tom for lethal with Narset and my Bird, and Martin with my Horror. Narset triggers and I reveal Dissolve, Sea of Clouds, Stony Silence and Strionic Resonator. Moving to my post-combat main phase, I cast Strionic Resonator and end my turn.
I play a Forest, and then Jack casts Painful Lesson, paying 1 extra for Rhystic Study. He targets himself, draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. I then recast Meren, not paying the 1 for Rhystic Study, letting Alex draw a card. In response to Meren, Alex throws a Cryptic command at Tom, countering the spell and tapping all creatures his opponents control. Not to be deterred, I cast Creekwood Liege, once again not paying 1 for Rhystic Study. Alex draws a card and gains a life from Authority of the Consuls. Unable to attack, we pass the turn.
My scheme for the turn is revealed to be When Will You Learn?, which I use to cast Angrath the Flame Chained and Grim Horspecs for free. Don't mind if I do. I activate Angrath's +1, forcing Martin and Jack to both discard a card and lose 2 life. I move to combat and swing at Martin with all of my creatures that are able to attack. In response to Narset's ability triggering, I activate Strionic Resonator, copying it. I reveal Plains, Fact or Fiction, Sulphur Falls and Grand Abolisher off the first trigger, followed by Flooded Strand, Pact of Negation, an Island and Vanishment from the second. Martin takes 13 damage from my unblocked army, and I go to my post-combat main phase. I cast Vanishment, putting Martin's Creekwood Liege on top of his library, and end my turn, choosing not to cast Fact or Fiction. In my end step, Jack uses Farika's ability to create 2 more snakes, giving me 2 life.
In our turn, I recast Creekwood Liege and Alex gains a life. Jack then casts Torrent of Souls, returning Tireless Tracker to the battlefield and giving all of my creatures +2/+0 until the end of turn. What's gonna work?
Teamwork! Wait, that's bad for me.
We move to combat and Alex flashes in Snapcaster Mage. He targets Cryptic Command with Snapcaster's ability, to which I respond by activating Scavenging Ooze's ability, exiling it. That's twice he's fallen for that in 1 game. I then attack Alex with all of my creatures except for Acidic Slime, and Jack offers moral support, given that Alex's scheme prevents him from attacking. Still bitter from his recent humiliation, Alex blocks my Scavenging Ooze with his Grim Horspecs and Snapcaster Mage. All 3 creatures die, and Alex takes 17 damage. Jack gets 2 zombies thanks to Kalitas, which in turn gains Alex 2 life. In our second main phase, Jack plays Evolving Wilds, getting a clue thanks to his Tireless Tracker. He immediately sacrifices the land to put a swamp into play, and I cast Smothering Abomination, paying the Rhystic Study tax. Jack gets another clue, Alex gains a life, and we move to our end step. Jack taps Farika and Kalitas, forcing Alex to abandon his scheme, and we pass the turn. Alex responds to this by casting Sphinx's Revelation, drawing 5 cards and gaining 5 life. He then moves to his turn.
I begin my turn by revealing my next scheme, The Mighty Will Fall. I deal 7 damage to Jack and play an island. Next, I activate Angrath's -3 ability, taking control of Darigaaz, and cast Vapor Snag, returning Acidic Slime to Martin's hand, and causing him to lose 1 life. I then move to combat and attack Martin with all of my creatures. Narset triggers, revealing 2 islands, Blue Sun Zenith, and Censor. I deal Martin exactly lethal damage, which is always satisfying to accomplish. I then move to my end step, and Jack sacrifices his 2 clues to draw 2 cards. He then cycles Street Wraith, losing 2 life and drawing another card, before moving to his turn.
Jack goes straight to combat, attacking Alex with Darigaaz, Kalitas, Farika, and Tireless Tracker. Alex takes the 20 damage, and Jack moves to his post-combat main phase. He casts Sakura Tribe Elder, gaining Alex a life, and passes the turn.
I start my turn by revealing Because I Have Willed It as my scheme, which is really not too helpful at this late stage in the game. I activate Angrath's +1 ability, forcing Jack to discard a card and lose 2 life. I then cast Expropriate, and choose to have an extra turn. Jack kindly chooses to donate one of his permanents to me, and I take control of his commander. I move to combat and attack Jack with my Aven Mind Sensor, dealing him 2 damage, and move to my extra turn.
Alex's next scheme is Choose Your Demise. He takes 4 of the remaining 5 cards in his library and separates them into a face-up pile and a face-down pile. Jack puts Narset Transcendent and Nimbus Maze into Alex's hand, and the rest go on the bottom of Alex's library. Alex then casts Mystic Retrieval for its flashback cost, putting Cyclonic Rift back into his hand. He casts the Rift for its overload cost, to which Jack responds by sacrificing Sakura Tribe Elder to put a mountain into play tapped. Tireless Tracker makes a clue, which Jack sacrifices to draw a card. The Rift then resolves, and Jack picks up his entire board. Things are not looking good for him. Alex attacks Jack with everything except for Narset, as a single trigger from her will empty his library. Jack animates Hissing Quagmire and blocks Torrential Gearhulk, destroying both creatures. Jack then takes 12 damage, and Alex moves to his second main phase. He activates Angrath's +1 ability, causing Jack to lose another 2 life and making him discard a card. He plays Nimbus Maze as his land for turn, discards down to 7, and then passes the turn.
In his turn, Jack casts Transverse the Ulvenwald, searching the top 4 cards of his library for a creature, puts Direfleet's Daredevil into his hand, and then casts it, gaining me a life. Jack targets my Cyclonic Rift, paying its overload cost. I shed a single tear for my beautiful board state, and then return it all to my hand. Cautiously optimistic, Jack passes the turn.
Alex draws a card from his almost empty library and sets the scheme, For each of you, a gift, into motion. He creates a 3/3 horror token and then recasts Lightning Greaves. He equips them to his horror and attacks Jack for 3. Alex then recasts Aven Mind Sensor and Authority of the Consoles before moving to his end step. He discards down to 7 and passes to Jack.
Jack untaps and moves to his draw step. I respond to his movement between phases by casting Time Stop, ending his turn. I then move to my own turn.
In his turn, Alex reveals his next scheme to be Every Dream a Nightmare. Tom and I cheer as Jack can force Alex to draw the last card in his library by discarding a land. Unfortunately, Jack has no lands in his hand to discard. Sad times. Alex recasts his commander and equips his Lightning Greaves to her. He goes to combat, attacking Jack with his horror and his Aven. Jack blocks the horror with his pirate and takes 2 damage. At the end of combat, Jack casts Thrilling Encore. Alex responds to this with Rewind, countering the spell and leaving Jack creatureless. Alex then ends his turn.
Jack starts his turn by casting By Force, destroying my Lightning Greaves. How rude. He then recasts Satya Wayfinder, gaining me a life, and putting Desert of the Indomitable into his hand. He then cycles the desert, drawing a card, and casts Angrath the Flame Chained. He uses Eingrath's -3 ability to take control of my Aven Mind Sensor and proceeds to attack me with it. I take the 2 damage and Jack moves to his end step. My Mind Sensor is sacrificed and I move to my turn.
Alex draws the final card in his library and reveals his next scheme. This world belongs to me. Alex is unable to draw the 2 cards as the scheme requires him to do so, and therefore loses the game. And victory was so close for him.
Well, that's it for another game of Commander. We hope that you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe if you haven't already. And we will see you next week with another video. Bye.